When people are talking about traits, they're referring to the words that people use to describe themselves and others in their everyday lives. So there are adjectives such as things like shy, devious, manipulative, open, or friendly. If you went to Webster's unabridged dictionary, you would find that there are about 18,000 words that could be used to distinguish one person from another. And this is exactly what Allport and Odbert did in 1936. Trait theorists then use a statistical technique called factor analysis to reduce this diversity down to a smaller group of underlying traits. Although there's no complete consensus among trait theorists regarding the most scientifically supported model of personality structure, the Big Five has received the most attention. Coster and McRae developed this test in 1987 and they called it the Big Five. They found that despite the myriad of personality traits that we use to describe people, they do tend to cluster in 5 areas. This approach measures the 5 factors of personality, which are openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Openness to experience. And this openness to experience is a tendency to be imaginative and intellectually curious and show independence in judgment. The next factor is conscientiousness. This is a tendency to be goal-directed, organised, attentive to detail. The third factor is extroversion. And this is a tendency to be sociable, talkative, assertive, and active. The fourth factor is agreeableness. And this is a tendency to comply with others' requests, a tendency to be trusting of others and sympathetic. The 5th factor is neuroticism. And this is a tendency to be anxious and nervous as opposed to calm and well-adjusted. I've listed them in this order as it spells out the acronym OCEAN, which is one way to remember the 5 big personality traits. According to the Big Five advocates, we can use these factors to describe all people, including those with psychological disorders. A severely depressed person, for example, may be low in extroversion, high in neuroticism, and above average on the other 3 dimensions. Each of the 5 factors represents an amalgam of several more specific traits. For example, as you can see in the table, people high on neuroticism tend to be anxious, depressed, impulsive, and so on. These lower order traits are called facets of the 5-factor model. The test has 243 items, 3 of which are validity check items, which is used to check whether people have filled the test in correctly or not. The test is designed for people aged 17 years and over, so essentially it's for adults. There are also 3 formats to the test. There's a self-report format, where the person fills it in themselves. There's a short form, which is 60 items, and there are observer reports, where others fill it in about the person, which could be a peer, a spouse, or other experts. Each item is rated on a 5-point scale from strongly agree to strongly disagree. And the items assess behavioural, emotional, experiential, attitudinal, and motivational variables. At the end, it produces a profile with bands reflecting very low, low, average, high, and very high scores on each of those 5 domains. And here's a summary of those 5 domains. We'll go through them again. So extroversion or sociability or positive emotionality. The sort of items on this domain look at how energetic one is. People who score high on this factor like to work in cooperation with others, are talkative, enthusiastic, excitement-seeking. People who score low on this factor prefer to work alone and can be perceived as cold, difficult to read, even a bit eccentric. Next, we've got neuroticism, or inversely, emotional stability, or negative emotionality. So this is a tendency to worry. People who score low on this factor are usually calm, relaxed, and rational, and may sometimes be perceived as lazy and incapable of taking things seriously. People who score high on this factor are alert, anxious, sometimes worried. The next factor is agreeableness, and this describes one's level of orientation towards other people. Those who score high on this factor are usually cooperative, they can be submissive, and concerned with the well-being of others. People who score low on this factor can be challenging, competitive, and sometimes even argumentative. The next factor we look at is conscientiousness. This looks at how structured one is. People who score high on this factor are usually productive and disciplined and single-tasking. People who score low on this factor are often less structured, less productive, but can be more flexible and inventive and can be multitasking. The final scale is openness to experience or openness to ideas. This is a tendency to be speculative and imaginative. People who score high on this factor are curious and sometimes unrealistic. People who score low on this factor are down to earth and practical and sometimes obstructive of change.